Tonight we have a very special guest, Sister Dalia Mogahed. She's a very prominent and influential figure amongst the American Muslim community. And she was, mashallah, you have a very long list of accomplishments, but we're short on time, so I'm just going to mention a few. So she was selected as an advisor by President Obama on the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, and she is also currently the president and CEO of Mogahed Consulting, a Washington, D.C. based executive coaching and consulting firm specializing in Muslim societies and the Middle East. So if you could all please just give a round of applause to Sister Dalia Mogahed.
Thank you.
This right here.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. First, thank you for coming this evening to have this conversation with me. I'd like to just offer some very brief remarks, and I want to spend as much time as possible on your questions. So I want to start by acknowledging how hard it is right now, I think, to be a Muslim. There's a lot going on in the world that makes it very, very difficult at this time. And some of you might be feeling some of that pressure at your schools, in your circles of friends. And I just want to at least acknowledge that it's not all in your head. This is a really difficult time. There is growing anti-Muslim rhetoric in the media. There are politicians saying things that we would never have heard even right after 9/11. So things truly are harder maybe than they've ever been. And looking around at your ages, most of you either were born or were very young in 2001. At the time of the attacks of 9/11. So most of you in this room really don't know any other America than a post 9/11 America. And I think that that's a very unique generation of young Muslims who have grown up and not known any other America. What I want to talk to you about now is not to deny that these things are happening, is not to deny that there are real challenges before you as young Muslims. But the message I want to deliver is that despite these challenges, I want you to understand that you are not just a community that is trying to survive, just trying to get by, just trying to get through this difficult time. What I really hope that you will take away today is an understanding that you have a role, a leadership role, to save not only our community, but our country from this disease that we are all suffering from called bigotry. Because the Islamophobia that you are seeing in the media is not just a threat to you. It's really important to understand. It's not just a threat to Muslims. It's a threat to every single American. It's a threat to every single person of color in America. And that's because it's fueled by fear. The way people are being taught to fear Islam is by being fed fear. The problem with fear is it does three things to us. Every single human being, when we're afraid, according to actual brain scans, when we're afraid, we're more accepting of conformity, authoritarianism, and prejudice. So this Islamophobia that is so caustic and so toxic to our community is actually toxic for the entire country, because it's making people unable to live as free human beings. When we are afraid, we can't be free. Because in order to protect our freedom as citizens, we have to hold our government accountable. We have to ask hard questions. We have to be willing to stand up and be different. And when everyone's afraid, all of those things go away. People want to conform. People want to go along with whatever they're told. They're okay with authoritarianism. And they are more likely to give in to their biases. So Islamophobia is not a threat to Muslims only. It is a threat to democracy itself. So we are not just an embattled community that is trying to survive. Even though we are its first victims, we're not its only victims. And we can't think of ourselves as victims at all. We have to think of ourselves as moral leaders that are going to play a very important role in saving our country from this cancer. That is our role. Because we weren't put on this earth just to get by and survive. We have a very noble mission of bearing witness to truth, of establishing justice. And right now, this is the biggest threat to our country, to every single American. So I want you to think of yourselves not as a community trying just to make it to the next president is elected, because these things get worse with presidential elections. That's actually a fact. But to think about how you can work with others to combat this evil, not just for yourself, not just to defend yourself, but to bring about a better America than the one you're finding yourselves in. This is about leadership. This is about empowerment. And I have 5 suggestions of what to do to lead this moral revolution. The first thing I think we have to do is we have to liberate our minds, ourselves. We have to know ourselves the truth. We have to think of ourselves in a different way than we have been. We have to understand that we are responsible. We are owners of a stake in our country's future. We're not just trying to survive. We also have to think about how we can make things better, how we can bring about a better future. The second thing we have to do after liberating our own minds is we have to educate others. We have to educate others about who we are and what we believe. That doesn't just mean giving lectures. It means living our faith and talking openly about it. Not feeling like it's something we have to be ashamed of or have to hide. Quite the contrary. It's our biggest asset. And it's okay. We live in a country where it's okay to share that. The third thing we have to do after educating people is we also have to hold people accountable when they break the law, when they violate civil liberties and civil rights. When someone is guilty of violating the law, violating our civil liberties, treating us unfairly, or when we see injustice in general, we have to speak up and we have to do something about it. Simply letting injustice go because we're afraid that if we object, people will hate us even more, is internalizing that second-class citizenship that we are being, that is being pushed on us by bigots. So we have to think of ourselves as equal citizens and demand equal treatment. We're not looking for favors, we're looking for fairness. In addition to reaching out to people and educating them, we also have to hold those who violate the rights of others accountable. The fourth thing we have to do to lead this moral revolution is build coalitions. We have to work with other people around a common goal of justice. I think it's important to understand that when you look around at what's happening to Muslims, whether it's being accused of crimes that they didn't commit, whether it's unfair detention, and you look at the same types of things happening to other communities, we have to understand these things are common, these things are connected. It comes from the same source of an institutionalized bigotry. So work with other people that are fighting for social justice. You're not alone. What bigotry and racism wants to do to you is to make you think that you're the only ones, that you're isolated, that no one is with you. And when someone feels isolated, they feel weak, and it's easy for them to surrender to that oppression. But that's completely wrong. We have so many potential allies that are just waiting for us to reach out to them. We are not alone. And most people see the injustice that is happening. So don't let yourself feel alone. Work with others. Actively look for ways to build coalitions. And then finally, the fifth thing is to leave a legacy of compassion. The Prophet ﷺ is described in the Quran as a rahmah to all the worlds, which can be translated as mercy sometimes. But rahmah is bigger than mercy. Rahmah means a giving and an unconditional love. It comes from the root rahim, right? What is a rahim? It's a mother's womb. Rahmah comes from this root. A mother, when she's carrying a child, gives without receiving, gives without question. Rahmah means much bigger than mercy. It's a compassion, it's an unconditional love. And the Prophet ﷺ was described as a rahmah to all the worlds. لِلْعَالَمِينَ. How do we live as using that as our example? If he is truly our example and we aspire to be like him, how do we live our lives and have a community where rahmah is our signature trait, how we think of ourselves? You know, I'll tell you one story that always inspires me. I recently read something very simple. We've just had a ton of snow, of course, and I recently read that one of the traditions of the civilization in the Ottoman Empire was that they used to always go up into the mountain after a snowfall and throw birdseed everywhere. And that seems, kind of ordinary, but what really struck me is that their explanation for it, why they do that. And they said it's because birds should not go hungry in a Muslim land. And what really moved me about that statement, as simple as it seems, is the way they thought of what a Muslim land should be like. That in a Muslim land, birds don't go hungry. In a Muslim land, even the birds are provided for, because their own self-conceptualization, their own self-image was that rahmah was their signature trait. And so because this is how they thought of themselves, this is what they expected from themselves, it was reflected in their actions. And I think this is what we have to rediscover in our communities. What if we started saying things like, no one should be hungry in a neighborhood where there is a mosque? It's actually very simple. But if we start to think of ourselves in this way, that if we are truly followers of a man that God described this way, then how should we live that reality? So with that, those opening remarks, I'd love to hear some of your questions for the next 15 minutes.
No questions?
Wow.
Perfect community.
Who is the brave soul who will ask the first question? Yes, brother.
The second point from the five you said is educate people about Islam. What exactly do we educate them about? Like, what are areas in Islam, and what books do you recommend that we can give them or read that we can educate ourselves in?
Okay, thank you. I recommend that. So here's how I think the best way to educate people is. First, I think you have to have an actual relationship with them. So I'm not talking about like, sort of going out and just mass blaring out a message. That usually actually doesn't work. Unfortunately, most people are so skeptical of these kinds of things. You need to have a relationship of trust, a real friendship with people. They need to know you as a good human being. And if you think about the way Allah conveyed his message to humanity, it was through a human being that was an upright person before he even got the message, right? Like the Prophet ﷺ. He was called the trustworthy before he even got the message. So to be an upright human being, to be seen as someone who's trustworthy, and then after that kind of trust is built, you start to talk to them about what you believe, why you do what you do. So I think that the way to start is simply to explain the heart of Islam, which is Tawheed. I think a very good book, which I really like, and it's very short and very simple, is called Islam, Religion of Life. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's like 90 pages, but it's probably the best introductory book on Islam that I've ever seen. And I'd actually encourage you to read it as well if you haven't. So that would be the start. And then there's so much material out there on YouTube, and I mean, now it's like books are like, I don't even know people read books anymore. There's just, everything's online. But I think the most important thing is to live Islam, and then just the idea of telling them this is why you are the good person you are. This is where you draw those values from. Can be so powerful, can be so much more powerful than really than anything. And then giving them that kind of a simple book, if they are interested, would be the next step. But the important thing, I think, is that people need to understand, when they know a Muslim, that Muslim is a good human being. So we live our faith, and that we actually share the fact that we draw our values from this faith. That we're not like the exceptional one good Muslim, despite being, followers of Islam, which is the way oftentimes people are portrayed. Is if there's a decent Muslim, it's like, oh, they must be a liberal Muslim, or they must not really be following the Quran. And that is what the Islamophobes actually are saying, is that any Muslim who's not blowing something up is just not following the Quran. And to kind of, to totally dismantle that idea. Being like, I am like this because I'm a Muslim, because I follow the Quran.
Let's take one question on the sister side.
Yes, sister.
I just have a comment. I think the point you made about not victimizing ourselves is something that we all really need to think about. I'm even guilty of this. Like, whenever something happens to me, all I do is like tell my friends and then feel sorry about it, but then not really make an action to improve it or to like lessen the chances of that occurring to someone else.
Yeah.
And I think I like what you said about getting educated. You could start with your neighbors.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had a question. You mentioned about not letting injustice go. Can you give us some examples? Because these are young people.
Yeah.
Like if they see injustice, I mean, how would they approach that?
Sure. Well, it ranges in things, right? One really common injustice is bullying. Bullying is everywhere. It's actually in the workplace, it's in schools. What do we do when we see it happen to someone else? What do we do? Have you ever seen someone being bullied? Yeah? What did the people around him or her do? Can someone share what they saw?
They just watch it happen.
You just watch it happen? Okay. Why don't you think people do anything but watch it happen? They're afraid, right? What I'm talking about is the moral courage to actually do what's right even when it's scary. Even when you are afraid and you should, and it's logical to be afraid. It's not, it's not an irrational response. It's a very natural response. But the only way that we're going to lead this moral revolution to change things, and it is scary that it's on you, that I'm calling you to do it. But the message that we are trustees of is a very heavy and noble calling. It's not an easy life. So when you see someone being bullied, can you speak up? Because if everyone were to speak up, it wouldn't happen anymore. I recently read a quote. I think I'm remembering it somewhat right, but Dr. Martin Luther King said, "It won't be the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends that will really be something that hurts us." So the pain, not only of that bully, but of the silence of those people around us. I had one incident, this was like a million years ago. I was just in 3rd grade, so younger, way younger than all of you. But in the playground, all of these girls, who I guess were our group of friends, decided to, the sort of leader, the queen bee, decided to literally kick one of our friends out of this group. She just decided in her mind that day that was what she was going to do. And she instructed every girl to literally kick this girl, like kick her out, but we were like going to physically kick her. So every single person started to do that. They were like robots or zombies. Like they just obeyed what they were being told. And I, at the time, said, "No, I'm not going to kick her out. This is ridiculous. I'm not doing this." And so we were both kicked out of our group. So there are consequences for doing the right thing. It doesn't mean you're going to get a standing ovation. Doesn't mean you're going to get a trophy. You'll probably suffer for it. And you have to just accept that. Because courage means doing what's right and suffering the consequences. And oftentimes they're not great. That's why you're scared, because there's something going to happen, some negative thing may happen. And I'm telling you that it's still worth it.
And I think that's like one of the most powerful things, that when you stand up for anything that is injustice, don't expect it to go smooth.
Yeah.
That's one of the
right.
sign that you're doing something good. Like this is the salvation of your road, right? Like that's like something that our Prophet ﷺ, that's what he did, right? He stood up. He didn't just sit quiet, and that's why the Quraysh had issues with him, because he wanted to end the injustice for good. So I think that's something that very is part of us, in our life and the way we're practicing our faith in here too. So that's one of the, in my personal belief, it's part of my salvation. If I see something wrong from me and I don't do anything about it, I'm held responsible for it. Number one, I'm accountable for it, and third, whatever is taking place, I'm sharing part of the sin in a way on top of me, that because I didn't say anything. Right? Even if it is something wrong happening in my own house, like with my own parents or something, like in personal family members, doesn't matter. You're supposed to stand up for it. Stand up for the truth, even if it is against yourself.
Yeah. And it's really important to understand, especially with the Prophet ﷺ, if you study his life and you look at the injustice that was happening during his lifetime and in that part of the world, he was actually a member of the elite, most powerful, most noble tribe. The system that the status quo of his time worked for him. It wasn't him personally, it was being impacted. He wasn't a woman, he wasn't a slave, he wasn't one of the weaker tribe members. He was a member of Quraysh. They were the rulers. They were the most noble. So his message and all that risk that he took was because he believed in Allah. He believed in accountability. He knew this was the truth. It wasn't self-serving. And we have to remember that example as we're looking around. Even if it's not directly impacting us, we have to stand up for it. In this case, we're saving ourselves and we're saving everyone else as well. So thank you very much for your attention. And I hope that this starts a good conversation that you can continue. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're busy, and thank you for making the time for us in our community. We're blessed to have you, and hopefully you guys, definitely sisters and brothers, you're encouraged and you're uplifted to do something for your community. Become the active member, become the active person that Prophet ﷺ envisioned for you and for us in our next generation. So I just want to say a couple of things. If this is your first time, we would definitely like to register your name and your information so you can get feedback and information from what's taking place in the youth department. A couple of the events that are coming up, and actually, I'm glad she talked about reading books. We're gonna start a book club this Wednesday coming up, and we're gonna be studying the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, the life story of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So if you're interested in that program, you can definitely sign up. Every other Wednesday we'll meet and we'll have the book club taking place, inshallah. And I think Sister Faiza is the one responsible for it. So a couple of the events taking place. The February 6th Change of Heart Qiyam is gonna be all-night Qiyam taking place here. If you want to register for that, that'll be really awesome. It's going to be from 11 o'clock to all the way till Fajr, inshallah. So our khiyams are really awesome. They're really well planned, and inshallah you'll enjoy it. We have different speakers come through the night, and we have games planned out for you. Also, the February 20th, we have the Orphan Project. That's the part 2. So basically, we're working with UMR. Alhamdulillah, last orphan project, we were able to fund one orphan for the entire year. We collected all the funds. So we're trying to get another orphan to fund, to provide fund for that orphan, inshallah. This will be the second part of the orphan project that we started this year. And we hope to continue for it. And it's only costing us $2 per month per person. So that's the way we estimate it. So it's affordable, and you're part of the project. And this project is going to help you not just provide support and donation for the orphan, but it's also a spiritual journey for you to understand what this orphan is going through and what he's going to be getting from your donation, inshallah. And we want everybody to be involved. Also, February 27th, we're going to go for African American Museum trip on Black History Month. And February 3rd is the book club starting, and February 11th for all the high school people. So please, 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 I really need about 20 of you to get involved. So as you know, in New York and other locations within the states, they are trying to fight for the holiday for Muslims. And subhanAllah, and whenever we asked the high school students, like, some of them, not majority of them, we asked, would you like the day off officially from your school? A lot of you guys are like, no, we don't need to. It's okay. It's just a one day. But the fact that this is our holiday, we're really trying to work with the Jewish community, and I'm going to have about 20 Jewish high school students come here on the 11th of February, which is a Thursday, and 2 Thursdays, and I was expecting, I'm hoping, inshallah, 20 of you from Muslim community, Muslim community, 20 high school students come through, and you guys can have conversation and make this as a movement. And hopefully the state and the government kind of gives you guys the off for the holiday. But you guys have to run your show. You guys have to fight for your rights. And we hope you guys take initiative on that, inshallah. Also, what else? Am I missing anything? Every Thursday we have a Fast to Learn event. Well, every other Thursday. So next Thursday, I think our guest is Imam Johari. And then we have Brother Adam Sabita, who's here, I believe. And yeah, so we have definitely... the Al-Babas, I think she's going to be one of our speakers, inshallah. So please give us feedback on the events and activities. Get in our social media. So our social media sign is there. Please follow us. Give us feedback. We have a feedback table right there. Any suggestions, any comments, anything that you want to see improved, or some of the activities that you want to get involved in, please let us know. I hope you guys get engaged. This is not the only time we meet today. I know whenever we have guest speakers come on and off, but I would definitely love to see you more involved in your community. And if you would like to do something from a different community, please let us know. We can collaborate. I think few people are here from Darul Noor, right? Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, by the way. We just want to thank you so much for coming through. I know it's a long drive, but may your drive is worth it for this trip, inshallah. Any comments, suggestions, questions? Concerns, feedbacks? I know she had to go. She was supposed to be at 6:30. The traffic got caught up with her, and she had to leave by 7:15. It was really hard to book her, but alhamdulillah, ever since the Daily Show, I think she got overbooked by many different communities. So alhamdulillah, we were able to catch her on time on a Thursday night like this, inshallah. So please don't forget the major events coming up. This Saturday is the outing, and the next Saturday is the Qiyam. Please, hopefully you can join and spread the word. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.